Hi, this is Toby, and this is a review of the first episode of 20's Convos. Wally and I are pretty good friends, and we've known each other for about 19 years. In that time, like most friends do, we've had conversations about a lot of things, and we thought to ourselves, maybe it would be fun to bring the world in on them. And so, we have this. Now, this episode is about the global pandemic and its effect on our world as 20-something year olds, and what that might mean for our 30s. And so, we kicked off with general thoughts with how we've handled what has happened so far.
For you.
It's been mad, God. So pretty much, yeah, like obviously, like I think what keeps me sane every day is knowing that I'm not alone, right? It's all of us, right? I keep saying, oh, guys, not just you, it's everyone. We're all going through this. But I think my first 2 weeks, particularly, if you know, I don't know if you noticed, but I was always like posting stuff that had like
Same
question
here.
marks on the side.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like,
yeah,
what is going on? What is this about? What's going on? Why is this happening this way? Why are we not choosing? Why are we going on lockdown? So I had all these questions at the start. And then I think at some point I just said, I just found peace with it because I just felt, you know what, yeah, I have a lot more to be grateful for than worried about because I just felt I was complaining for no
yeah,
reasons.
yeah,
Because it's not like I lost a job or I lost something. I mean, I lost opportunities for certain things, but they were not like life-defining opportunities like some would have.
yeah.
So I think having that realization at some point just made me calm my nerves and say, fine, you know, it's a pandemic as they've put it, but thankfully you're not on the terrible receiving side, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
Well, to be honest, like it didn't really set in for me quickly. So obviously my company did this thing where even before the government put a lockdown in, we already started working from home. But my job really, even before the work from home thing, I'd always been like doing stuff remotely. To be honest, so that didn't really change, and I was very busy for the first like 2 weeks of it. So it didn't really set in. But after like my workload reduced a bit, it started to like seep in and just gently like I just read that realization where like yo, this is really intense.
yeah,
And I think my response to it was kind of like you, like gratitude that I had a job where I could work remotely. Things didn't really change in that aspect. But I think what also calmed me down as well was I just started to read a lot more, just trying to understand a bit more about what's going
yeah.
on and what has happened in the past, right? And which is really what led to this conversation that we're having right now. So I guess, but to be said, I said in one of the posts, like obviously this is not going to be just about the economy, right? We understand that there are people on the front lines putting their lives on the lines and things like that. And so all we're going to say here is just our perspective about things, not really like saying this is right or this is wrong, but just to, just share.
I think a common thread, with the thought that we shared is that we need to have that posture of gratitude with all that's going on right now. In my opinion, I think understanding and acknowledging the privilege you have and the things you should be thankful for gives you a better lens through which to interpret everything else. Next up, we talked about Africa's response so far.
In Africa's response so far, what would you say about it?
To be honest, bro, honestly, like I've not been keeping up. There's only so much I can take in
Yeah.
terms of truth, lies, things that make you upset, things that make you think, oh, this is good. There's only so much I can take. Africa as a whole, obviously, I don't know if you saw this guy's video. I think that was the first time I actually thought about it that way. Fela, no, it's not Fela. What's his name? The Kuti guy, Femi Kuti.
Femi Kuti, okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
see.
yeah.
What was it about?
Yeah, I saw it, but he just kept talking about having an Afrocentric response, to the whole pandemic thing. And I never thought about it that way until I saw that video, right? And I thought, oh, well, that makes sense because, similar to obviously other developing countries, we have confinement where this social distancing vibe cannot work easily.
Yeah.
So, and again, as most of us know, people like to die of hunger before
Before the COVID thing itself.
COVID-19,
Yeah.
So I just thought this is a tough one for anyone
Yeah.
to deal with. And personally, I think I was always on the camp where I was never ever going to criticize anyone's initial response, because I felt, this is something that hasn't happened in a long while, right? Sean Kuti, thanks, Gwen.
Sure. Yeah,
Thanks,
thanks,
Vega.
Vega.
Sean Kuti,
Yeah.
yeah. So I feel like, this is a pandemic. It's never happened before, right? So some countries would do trial and error. Some governments would follow the crowd. Some governments would try something crazy innovative. So I already had that, not forgiving spirit because I don't owe them anything, but I already had that vibe where I said, okay, anything anyone does to try and sort this out. They allowed mistakes, right? Because it's unprecedented, isn't it? So
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Africa's response, I pretty much did not follow it at all, to be honest with
Wally
you.
made some pretty interesting comments here, and I agree. This is something that hasn't happened before. And therefore, some governments will respond quickly because they can, while others will adopt more like a wait and see approach because that's what they have the capacity for. Anyways, Wally threw the question back at me, and here's what I said.
So because I'm in Ghana, like I've been able to see Ghana's response firsthand, and I've also like very still connected to Nigeria, so I've been able to see Nigeria's response as well. And I have friends that are South Africans and things like that, and at work we get updates from different hubs, and so just based on that, I think honestly, most African governments have responded the best way that they can at different levels, right? South Africa, because of the AIDS thing that they experienced a while ago, some of them have really good testing facilities, which is why they've been able to test the most.
I also managed to slip in a few words about Ghana and Nigeria's response so far at the time of recording.
To be honest, like again, like I said, I'm in Ghana right now, and the difference really it's quite interesting to see, to be honest, right? And like I don't feel like it's like very difficult to do. I think it's just that we choose not to do it, to be honest, because for example, so Ghana initiated a lockdown, gave regular updates, and next thing they're like, okay, based on the updates, they think we can start to ease the social distancing measures, right? And although a lot of people had different thoughts about it and not everybody's on board with it, but everybody has enough information to go on, right? And I feel like that's the least we can get. Honestly, kudos to the NCDC. I think like they've really definitely done their parts, but it feels like a lot of the effort is centered around just Lagos alone. I might be wrong, but it just feels that way sometimes. And I don't know. Wait, let's move on from this. But just generally, I think there have been good examples from the continent overall. Kenya is a different story altogether, but I think only time will tell who's made the right move or who's like been too slow to do certain things.
All right, so we had talked in general about responses from governments on the continent, but now it was time to dig deeper into one of those responses, the lockdown. So here's me ranting about the economic versus public health debate and why it's important to keep conversations about the economy top of mind, even in these times.
But I'll say, like, I got in a debate with someone, and it was kind of like an economy versus public health debate, right? The person is saying, we have to keep the lockdown going because, public health is at risk and all of that. And I'm like, I get it, but like, not to be like an apologetic towards like the economy, but like, we're not like any Western economy. Like, we don't have budgets to cover a lot of these things. And so I'm not saying let's open the economy back, but I'm just saying that you need to consider a lot of things and not just lock the economy down because the US is doing it, because Germany is doing it. Like, because even those economies are trying to open back up, right? Because there's only so much damage you can do to the economy by keeping it stable or keeping it like closed for a long time that you won't have to like reap the repercussions later on. But go ahead, you're going to say something.
You're right. The economy public health debate, that is the main debate so far. That is the debate that I even had with somebody even when the lockdown just started. So even before the economy was even showing any signs, I was like, this is gonna do. And I think for everyone who knows basic economics, that was always gonna happen, right? Again, there is something called privilege, right?
Yeah.
And I say that because there's many of us in this lockdown that are privileged as hell. And we can easily make those arguments. And I stress the word easily because you can make those arguments easily knowing where your next meal is coming from.
And I can see some people's comments, right? People have said like, the approach with Nigeria has really just been copy and paste. Yeah, we forgot that Western countries locked down but made provisions. Absolutely true, right? And Nigeria mentioned the fact that they were going to send money to folks, and then it became a question of how are you going to do that? It's like there are no structures or institutions in place that make such things easy, right? And so I think as much as like Wale mentioned, privilege is really like a key thing we shouldn't forget here. Some of us can stay home and still get paid and all of those things and work and all of those things, but the guy down the road, his shop is his livelihood, and if if COVID doesn't get him, hunger will. And so I think that needs to be included in the conversation, which I think, is what Ghana has tried to do. And I think one of the things that even the Ghana government mentioned is that one of the reasons they're opening the economy back again is because of, the bottom of the pyramid, which we cannot just like avoid just like that.
Overall, the point here is that decisions have consequences, and you need to take those consequences into account when you're making your decisions. The truth is, events do not happen in isolation, and trade-offs will always exist, and so you always have to find that opportunity cost, or at least keep that conversation top of mind. Next up, we spoke a little bit about our concerns for the future.
PhD right now. My third year right now. My PhD. I should be done next year. So definitely, economic wise, I'm definitely worried about for getting jobs later on in 2 years from now, because I know it is going to be tougher. Am I confident? Yes. Am I worried? Yeah, because anyone who's not worried is probably not smart. So I'm worried about that, definitely. I'm also worried about my friends and families who've got businesses that are affected by this.
Yeah.
Because this is a break in what we call normal life. And part of normal life is normal business that should happen the way we all think it should happen. But if it can't happen in that way, how do you suddenly reinvent something that can work in the new world? It's a big ask, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
That's one time.
And the funny thing, out of all my concerns, and none of it is health. I've had many concerns over the last 3 weeks. None of it has been my health. I'm not saying I've got a man of steel. I'm Clark Kent. No, I'm not Clark Kent. I just mean because I have the information that they've given us, right?
Yeah.
I'm confident that even if I get struck, God willing, I'll be all right. But after being all right, there's still a life to live ahead, right? I'm definitely in my 20s, approaching 30s in a couple of years. I have targets, right? I have things I want to. You have targets, so this has slowed down our targets already.
Those are like valid concerns. Like, if I'm going to dive right into what my own concerns are, I'll start from the second thing you said, which is like targets and just like goals and things like that. Like, we all started this year with like, things that we hope to do. Like, people are in school, there are things that you just plan based on what you felt would happen, and now like all of that is just like up in the air at the moment. I think for me, my number one fear is, first of all, I work with a non-profit, to be honest, right? And so one of the first things that gets cuts in time like this is funding and grants to such to things like that. So that's a big fear. And actually, I'll call it a concern rather than a fear. Another concern is just like, how soon can Africa really, as like a continent, get past this, and what would the other side look like? I've tried to go back in history, and like obviously when you're looking through history, there's a lot of information about like the West and things like that. Yeah.
Question of that. One of my main principles. Or one of the things that I try to keep on my board in my head is history is a terrible predictor of the future. Right? Very terrible. Very, very, very terrible. Right? There's some times where we can't tell what's going to happen based on what's happened in the past, right? And I say that because the measurements of even if we had the COVID-19 pandemic or whatever in 1960s or whenever the Spanish flu was, which people's comparisons, the dynamics of economy, social life, physical environment, everything has changed. Technology, everything has changed. So you will always have those unintended consequences, that you can't get from what history tells us.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
So my point is, be aware of history, but don't rely on history.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, I get your point, to be honest. And I think looking back at history is honestly just for context, right? Like, not really to predict what exactly will happen. It's really just for context, right? I can see your fans. Like, you have a lot of fans, to be honest, which is great.
just guys writing me. Don't mind that.
All right. So, but as I was saying, right? Like, so obviously, job security is a big one. A concern, not a fear. Like, why I like to differentiate between fear and concerns is that, like, I think having a fear about something kind of like tends to make you powerless about things. But making it a concern puts you in a position where you're kind of like already looking for how to get past it, right? And so that's why I'm calling it a concern. I think other things, right? Let's make it local now. Like the Naira, like without the pandemic, the Naira itself was already like doing its own thing. You understand? Right? And so now with the added catalyst of the pandemic itself. It's like, what's going on? Like, you understand, right? And again, privilege. Some people earn in dollars and they're smiling to the bank right now but I think if even though the nominal like amount of what you can do with your dollars is increasing, like the prices of things will still follow with inflation, right? And at the end of the day, like you're still back to square one. So honestly, it's a very big concern, right? And I'm like, as a continent, as okay, let me not generalize, as Nigeria, do we actually have the capacity to like do the right things? Like we're still reeling from the recession in 2016, which was largely by our own doing, right? Trying to flow like to defend the naira for whatever reason. Like I guess I'm not an economist, and I guess there were like good parts to it as well. But I'm just saying, like that's another fear, or concern, not fear, a concern that how exactly are African governments going to reposition themselves after this, right? Because again, like I mentioned earlier, any government that is putting out relief and supporting things and putting out money, like it's not like they had that money in the bank per se. They're essentially borrowing on the future generations, which technically is us, right?
Absolutely.
So in the next 10 years, what exactly are we doing to pay off those debts, right? Especially if they're not managed properly. So I guess those are the two for now. The rest of them, like you said, health, to be honest, like you said, like for whatever reason, it's not been that close. Like, yeah, obviously I don't want to get it, but I do know, like, again, if I do get it, like there's information, there's stuff like it's exactly there's all of that. So the concern really isn't about like getting it. I think it's larger than that. It's like what are the other
We both said a lot there, and it's understandable, to be honest. As events continue to happen and as they hit closer to home, you begin to realize that there's a lot about the conversation that isn't happening, for good and maybe for questionable reasons. To wrap things up, we shared our thoughts about hedging for the future of things.
So the next thing is like, how are you hedging for that? Like, so these are the concerns that you have. What are you doing to kind of like, I guess, put yourself in a better position for that?
Bro, like in a nutshell, yeah. I think first things first, I've been trying to stay positive.
Yeah.
Right, and keep my confidence in myself.
Yeah.
Right? Because going back to the first point I made, I said, remembering that it's not just me, it is all of us.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm using that to take some comfort. Like, this is not my problem. This is a world problem, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So secondly, it is just staying ahead of the game. So what I mean by that is, my own context right now, yeah, I'm saying, okay, the things that I thought, targets that I want to reach by 2021, I need to reach it faster, or when that time comes, do it better, right?
Yeah.
Now that works for me because I'm a researcher. If you have a business, it's not really in your control.
Completely different. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So me preparing for it, honestly, I'm playing it by ear as well, because again, I don't think the story is over. I see things like plot twists coming, positive or negative. So, but then again, I'm just trying to stay aware as fast as quick as I can, because everything is just changing. Even just travel plans alone, like how that affects. Even those conferences that would help my own CV to attend, that as well. So it's not just all play, but even work stuff as well. But as hedging for the future, let me just think, what else am I doing? I think even besides work, yeah, I think I'm trying to make more connections now. Honestly, like I'm on LinkedIn trying to meet people right now, because like I said, and maybe that goes back to my point of doing things faster or better or with more quality.
Yeah.
But I'm realizing now that urgency has to be in being at the point where I'm on top, because when this is all over, I can't say that, oh well, COVID-19 slowed me down. It slowed the entire world down. Right. So I want to be at the end where I say, okay, it slowed me down, but I managed to do this. So I think it stems from the fact that I'm accepting the reality as it is.
Yeah.
One, thinking of those targets that I can actually do with this reality.
Yeah.
Thinking of ways I can do them better, faster, or more quality.
Yeah.
I'm putting myself either by meeting people or doing whatever I can do to improve my knowledge, put me at a better place right now.
Yeah.
Because again, like I said, the future is still very, very open. So I can't say where it's going to end up in the next 6 months. I can't say what's going to be good and bad.
Okay,
How about you?
fair. So for me, I think my perspective about it is there are things that I can control and there are things I can't control.
Absolutely.
So the things that I can't control, I've left it, like I'm a firm believer in my faith and all of that, and so I've left that side. But in terms of things that I can't control, I've started to again just be more strategic and deliberate. I think being deliberate about certain things in this season is very important, and so making contingency plans as well. So I'm like, okay, cool. I work for a nonprofit. Funding could get cut at any point in time, and so I need to make sure that in that reality, if that reality happens, I am still able to do certain things, right? And so, positives from this whole thing, staying at home, is that, we're not spending money as much. My companies don't really want to take care of us and do all of those things. And so, like, building that sort of like runway, I'm thinking of it as a runway, building that runway should anything, negative in that sense happen, that I'm still a bit like, I don't come out of it feeling like confused or, flustered, right? Because I think one of the things when like challenges happen is, having that base to fall back on to then start to think properly.
So I think the key takeaways for me here were: one, having a positive attitude; number two, maintaining a healthy level of confidence; three, understanding what's in your control and what's out of your control; and four, being very deliberate about decisions you're making in this time. And finally, we shared our final thoughts.
Yeah, so I think my overall point is, we human beings are responsible for, one, educating ourselves,
Yeah.
being aware of our own prejudices, right? And hearing the right information and asking for evidence.
Yeah.
That thing is something that I always preach, and maybe it's the PhD side of me that's making me preach that, but we don't ask for evidence enough as a population. I don't think so. I think we take everything we hear so easily, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying come up with conspiracies. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, if someone says, oh, this is this and this and this, try and say, okay, give me proof.
Yeah.
So it's just those three things, just, I think that can maybe, help us as we go on. But like I said, the story is far from over.
Yeah. Yeah.
The next 3 months we'll have a new revelation that would make us think differently. So
yeah.
Till then.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll just wrap up with this, right? Like, you spoke about the vaccines, right? I was reading about that, and apparently there are really like only 4 major producers in the world. One of them is Chinese. I think 2 of them are like the US, and 1 is in India, right? And the economics of vaccines is already coming into play even before they found it, right? And so, I guess I'll share the article again, maybe on my profile, but it's probably worth a read, because I think everybody has been waiting for the vaccines, but when it does come, it does create a separate conversation altogether.
So there you have it, a review of the first episode of 20's Convos. It was pretty fun. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. And if you have any questions, concerns, comments, if you agreed or disagreed with anything that we said and thoughts that we shared, please leave them in the comment section as well. Wale and I will try and take the time to review that and maybe incorporate it in future conversations that we might have. But till then, take care and stay safe.